More than just a mere economic crisis, what is unfolding in Cuba shows signs of a profound social earthquake. As consecutive protests erupt in the capital Havana and spread to many other urban areas, observers suggest that this Caribbean island may be entering its most serious period of instability in many years. The People's Street demonstrations initially stemmed from very specific hardships: prolonged power outages, fuel shortages, skyrocketing prices, and increasingly precarious livelihoods. However, according to many analysts, economic grievances are only the tip of the iceberg. More noteworthy is the shift in social psychology, as more and more Cubans publicly express frustration with the administration led by President Miguel Díaz-Canel. This reality reminds many scholars of a classic principle in Confucian political thought: a government can survive as long as it has food, an army, and the trust of the people. But if that trust vanishes, the foundation of power also falters. In the case of Cuba, the combination of a prolonged economic crisis and declining social trust is creating an exceptionally sensitive environment. Therefore, the issue at hand is not only whether Cuba can overcome its economic difficulties, but more deeply, whether the government can restore public trust before the wave of social discontent turns into a full-blown political crisis. The decline of social trust in Cuba did not emerge in a vacuum. It was formed from a series of overlapping crises in the daily lives of the people, where basic issues such as electricity, fuel, and food gradually became triggers for instability. In that picture, the energy crisis is emerging as the direct fuse pushing Cuban society into a state of tension. For months, prolonged power outages have become familiar in many parts of the island. Many places have recorded blackouts lasting dozens of hours, sometimes exceeding a full day. In the capital Havana, electric light sometimes becomes a rare luxury, forcing people to adjust their entire rhythm of life according to the periods when power is temporarily restored. When the lights come on in the middle of the night, many families scramble to cook, wash clothes, or preserve food before the darkness returns. The root of this situation lies in an energy system that has seriously deteriorated. Most of Cuba's thermal power plants were built decades ago, operating under a lack of investment and heavy dependence on imported fuel sources. One of the most important facilities is the Antonio Guterres power plant, the country's largest power generator, which frequently encounters technical failures. When one unit stops operating, the entire already fragile electrical system immediately suffers a chain reaction, making the power supply for millions of people intermittent. However, the energy crisis is only one part of a larger equation. Skyrocketing fuel prices amidst scarce supply have created enormous pressure on an already weakening economy. On the black market, a gallon of gasoline can cost up to several hundred US, a cost far beyond the affordability of many families. As fuel becomes scarce, transportation stagnates, goods delivery is disrupted, and many basic economic activities fall into a state of paralysis. For ordinary people, these fluctuations quickly translate into a livelihood crisis. Food becomes scarcer, prices soar, and incomes cannot keep up. In many neighborhoods, the image of makeshift fires fueled by wood or dry branches has gradually become common as both electricity and gas are in short supply. These seemingly small hardships in daily life, when accumulated over a long period, have turned into a source of smoldering discontent in society. It is in this context that protests began to break out. The clanging of pots and pans and the slogans demanding change echoing in the streets do not just reflect anger over power outages or fuel shortages. They are also expressions of a collective sense of exhaustion, when many believe that the current system is no longer capable of solving the basic problems of life. However, the impact of the energy crisis does not stop at the economic sector. It is spreading to other vital pillars of Cuban society, especially the healthcare system and public services. For decades, Cuba's healthcare system was seen as a source of national pride, frequently praised for its extensive network and large number of doctors. But currently, that image is facing severe challenges. The lack of electricity and fuel has disrupted the operations of many hospitals. Some medical facilities have been forced to limit surgeries, prioritizing only emergency cases. Many diagnostic devices, such as X-ray machines, ultrasound machines or CT scanners cannot operate stably when the power source is unreliable. In addition, the increasingly severe shortage of medicine and medical supplies makes treatment more difficult. Doctors and medical staff must work in increasingly harsh conditions. Surgery waiting lists are growing, emergency rooms are overcrowded, while many patients cannot access healthcare services at the right time. In the context of declining environmental sanitation and the accumulation of urban waste, experts also warn of the risk of a resurgence of infectious diseases such as dengue fever or chikungunya. These developments lead many observers to conclude that the current crisis in Cuba is no longer simply an economic one. As the healthcare system and essential public services begin to weaken, the country risks entering a potential humanitarian crisis, where the basic survival issues of the people are met with unprecedented challenges. In that context, the political factor is becoming increasingly clear. The number of protests continues to rise, and what is notable is that the level of public discontent is greater than before. Many citizens are no longer just complaining about economic hardships, but have begun to directly criticize the management of the government led by President Miguel Díaz-Canel. This shift in social attitude reflects a deeper issue, a crisis of trust. As economic difficulties persist without clear signs of improvement, more and more people question the effectiveness of the current system and the possibility of future reforms. In street conversations, in graffiti, or in spontaneous protests, the idea of change has gradually become a more frequent topic. This phenomenon recalls a philosopher's classic observation: a government that wants to survive needs three factors: food, an army, and the trust of the people. According to this philosophy, when forced to choose, rulers can lack weapons or even lack food for a time, but if they lose the trust of the people, the foundation of power cannot stand firm. In Cuba's current circumstances, the economic and energy crises can be seen as immediate material problems. But what worries many observers even more is the decline in social trust occurring alongside them. And when these two factors combine, they can create a political pressure far greater than any single economic difficulty. Amidst increasing internal pressures, international factors have also begun to play a significant role in the progression of the crisis in Cuba. Relations between Havana and Washington have long been a primary axis, shaping the economic and political destiny of this Caribbean island. After more than half a century of tension, the policies of embargo and economic sanctions from the United States continue to create significant pressure on Cuba's already fragile economy. For many years, trade and financial restrictions have made it difficult for Cuba to access capital, technology, and fuel. As the global economy fluctuates, these barriers make Cuba's economic system even more vulnerable. Some analysts argue that it is the combination of internal crisis and external pressure that has created the current exceptionally sensitive situation. In this context, many voices in Washington, including politicians like Marco Rubio, continue to call for maintaining strong pressure on the Havana government with the goal of promoting future political changes. The interaction between domestic and international factors is opening up many different scenarios for the future of Cuba. One possibility mentioned by many experts is that the administration led by President Miguel Díaz-Canel may carry out certain economic reforms to reduce social pressure. Steps such as loosening market controls, expanding space for the private sector, or improving international economic relations could help alleviate some of the discontent among the populace. Whichever path is chosen, many observers agree that Cuba is standing at a major turning point in its modern history. What is happening shows that the big question is no longer whether a crisis exists. What is truly being asked now is by which path Cuba will overcome this period of instability, reform, control, or transformation. And the answer to that question could shape the future of the country for decades to come.